Hello, my name is Alexander Kraus. We are ESOP, we are the German partners in the project Cisotra, Civil Society for the Transition of Unaccompanied Minors to the Adult System. As we learned in all of the partner countries, the transition from the support systems for unaccompanied minors to the adult system is a very complex topic. Mostly minors are in a relatively protected situation, while adults live in the general adult system, while adults live in a system where the legal situation is very different, and the provisions are much leaner in many situations. Therefore, the topic of the project was how to smoothen these transitions and how to mitigate the problems that come with this often harsh break. Therefore, we did an initial study which was based on analyzing the national literature, but also we studied good practices in the field. The result was a kind of an overview of a transition system which we think can be useful for planning and coordinating efforts in this field. And in the next 10 minutes, I would like to walk you through the main elements of the systematic approach that we identified. Minors who come to their host countries often are not actually children, maybe except of the partner country Turkey, but most of them are 15 or 16 years old, so they have only 2 years or 3 years in the system for minors. In all of the partner countries, they are assigned a guardian, they cannot be deported, so their overall situation is quite good. Often they live in protected communities with a socio-pedagogue to accompany them. And so the main challenge is to learn the host country language, to get into the society a bit, to socialize with the host community. As soon as these youngsters are 18, depending on the country and even the actual administrative practice, they are regarded as adults, and often they have to leave these protected communities, they have to move to the regular asylum seekers, shelters. There is much less socio-pedagogical support. So all in all, this is a huge challenge for them. And what we learned is there are two main dimensions how to coordinate and how to handle this challenge. The one dimension is the transition through what we call the chains of education. So the regular school, training and employment system, which is quite similar to what the native youth have to do. You have to move from regular school, system is a little bit different in all of the partner countries. Then you have to make a decision what your educational path will be, if you want to go to university, or if you want to take up an apprenticeship, or if you do a school-based vocational training. In some countries, you just start to work without much initial training. So there are quite a lot of decisions to make, and what we learned in recent years is that these transitions cannot be taken for granted. It takes preparation, it takes a kind of transferal system from one school or one educational element to the next. In particular, the step from the education to the training and apprenticeship system is quite challenging and takes quite a lot of networking on the side of the schools. Of course, refugees are a special group. Many of them come with quite low educational prerequisites. Many youth, for example, from Afghanistan, never attended a regular school. So catching up in just a few years with the host country language, but also with basic things like basic math and languages or general subjects is a huge challenge. The second thing to consider is once they become adult, their status of residence again has to be checked. So there is a constant fight to stay or being allowed to stay in the host country. This is often a psychological burden and takes up a lot of energy from the youth. In many of the partner countries, there are special provisions and special branches in the school system to manage this introduction in the educational system, like the vocational integration classes in the federal state of Bavaria in Germany, where the learning of the language is combined with a number of basic educational provisions, and the aim is to transfer the youth into apprenticeship, or at least to prepare them for this transferal. We will talk about this more closely in another video. The second dimension that needs to be considered is the social integration of the youth. As the talk of Christine Pietsch and Amelie Steiner on stabilization factors shows, also the integration or inclusion in the host country cannot be taken for granted. Youth come with a lot of different orientations. They have to reframe their mindset in terms of the appropriate goals in life, in terms of their perception of the home country, what you can do, what you cannot do, what are the factors of acceptance in the country, what are the conditions for success. And of course they come with often with a very big emotional and psychological burden. Often their life story is a story of escape, trauma and insecurity, and they are for the first time in a relatively safe position to reconsider all of that and to form new life projects for themselves. So there is the challenge for the youth themselves to stabilize their situation in terms like secure status of residence, in terms of housing, in terms of considering their own resources, setting life goals, in terms of spatial orientation. Do I want to migrate to the host country on a permanent basis, or is my plan to go back to my home country as soon as possible or to move to another country? So orienting is the next very important step or element of this societal integration, and we think that this orientation needs a kind of a focal point. So there need to be good formats to form such life projects for the youth, and this should be a quite organized process. We have researched formats which are appropriate to support such orientation. Stabilizing, orienting. One point that must not be forgotten is that once youth become adults, they are free to leave the systems that have cared for them when they were minors. So often they move out of their communities, and often they lose contact to their prior guardians and also many other support systems. Some of them perceive the situation in the host country as a situation of freedom, so they try to use this freedom. Some of them are overburdened with the complexity of the many institutions, of the many offers for consultancy, and for them it's very hard to find appropriate contacts and appropriate partners to support them. So the challenge for the support structures is not to wait until the youth come to them, but there need to be a very active outreach and engaging activities on the side of the organizations which aim to support the youth. So this is a special field of activities. We have documented quite a lot of good practices on that. So if we presume that the stabilizing and the orienting has been successful and the youth have formed life projects, the next step would be to leave this support system which is made and designed for the support of refugees as refugees, and to enter the regular system which is not specially made for refugees. So to enter the regular education system, a regular job in a regular company, an apprenticeship, and to phase out the special support. We have seen that in fact this support should not stop at the moment where the youth gets his first job or an apprenticeship, but there are some special factors that need to be considered. So the companies as well as the youth need to have somebody available to assist in cases of conflicts, or to organize extra lessons, or to explain things. So this support throughout the regular employment and apprenticeships is very important. But finally, the aim should be to be part of the regular system as soon as possible. And on the side of the society, to leave those activities which are designed specially for refugees and to become part of the regular sports clubs, of the regular civil society organizations. So this is the final aim and another stabilizing factor also. All the elements that I have just mentioned here obviously are very sensible and good interventions, but the problem is often that they are designed and implemented quite separate from each other. So there is no overall system, there is no planning on an individual level in the sense of case management, and often there are no good transferal processes in place. So the coordination of all of these activities is another field of improvement. We do have good practices like in the city of Munich, where there is an overall plan of integration, and the city hall aims to coordinate the various actors, also supported by own funds to to support a qualification and employment program. But the actors in the system have to talk to each other so that the activities are complementary and support each other, and none of the clients gets lost. One point here also is the training of the actors. We find that all of them often are well-meaning, but for sure there are different perceptions of the own mission and of the other takes on the program as a whole. On the side of the security community, on the side of the employment agency, on the side of the social worker, on the side of the teachers in the regular school. And often there is a lack of understanding for each other's perspectives. And we found that common workshops and trainings where the actors explain their own logic of action to each other, inform about their own plans, their own resources, what can be done. This is in fact very helpful. So this is a first take on the overall system, and in the analytical report of the Cisotra project you can find a chapter on each of these elements. And in additional videos we will explain some of these elements in more depth.